Yes, I know. Everybody's talking about the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview that dropped this evening. And don't worry, Old Front Porch will put out a video or a live stream covering that. I just need some time to watch it again, put my thoughts together, and present them in a rational, logical manner. That said, there is just as equally a big story that came out late this afternoon that has set all of official Washington on fire. The special counsel in the matter of the Biden document case has released his final report. And as you've probably seen in the headlines, Biden's not going to be charged. But that's not the story. It's the reason why he's not going to be charged that has set all of official Washington and the gatekeeper media on fire and started them in discussions about a subject they never thought they'd ever have to bring up where Joe Biden was concerned. What am I talking about? Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this in just 1 second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. Around the middle of the afternoon on Thursday, Special Counsel Robert Hur, appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate the matter of the Joe Biden classified documents issue, released his final report to the Congress. It runs about 345 pages. Bureaucratic efficiency at its best. Very thorough, very detailed. The report, as I indicated a moment ago, says that Biden will not be charged. But it's not the fact that he won't be charged, it's the reason why that's got everybody in Washington up in arms. So let's start with justthenews.com and we'll get into the reasons why in just a moment. Headline: Special Counsel Robert Hur says Biden willfully shared classified memos but won't be charged. The Department of Justice sent Hur's final 345-page report to Congress on Thursday. Article by Ben Whedon and John Solomon. We read the following. Special Counsel Robert Hur concluded in a stinging report released Thursday that President Joe Biden willfully kept classified documents from his time as vice president, shared them with an author, and knew he had them as far back as 2017, but he recommended against prosecution. Reading a little bit further into the article, but Hur spared few words for Biden's handling of classified information, some of which were kept in notebooks in insecure locations. Quote, our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, the report concluded. Hur found that the materials Biden secreted from the White House were highly sensitive and included, quote, marked classified documents about military and foreign policy in Afghanistan and notebooks containing Mr. Biden's handwritten entries about issues of national security and foreign policy implicating sensitive intelligence sources and methods. The prosecutor revealed that Biden knew he had classified documents at his home back in 2017 and shared some of the information with a ghostwriter for his memoir published that year. Hur's conclusions stand a stark contrast to what fellow special counsel Jack Smith did in prosecuting former President Donald Trump for keeping similarly classified materials at his Mar-a-Lago home. Hur addressed why in the report he came to a different conclusion. Most notably, after being given multiple chances to return classified documents and avoid prosecution, Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite, Hur explained in the report. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents for many months, but he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then to lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and to the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes, sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation, Hur said. Okay, let's get into this. Am I necessarily surprised that Special Counsel Robert Hur is not going to bring charges against President Joe Biden for his mishandling of documents that were found at his Delaware home, among other locations, around the area. No, I am not necessarily surprised. I have more or less resigned myself to the fact that we are living under a system of two-tiered justice in America. And if you're not a member of the right team or part of the club, you will be charged one way, whereas somebody else will be charged another. But just saying. But laying all that aside, did I expect Joe Biden to be charged? No. Am I surprised that he wasn't? No. Am I surprised that the report finds that Biden willfully and knowingly had these documents and kept them as far back as 2017? No, not necessarily. So what's the big shock, you might ask? It's not necessarily the fact he wasn't charged, it's why. And I think when you begin to read part of what's in that report, which I'm going to show you next, you'll begin to understand my level of shock. I take you to the document itself. This is on the Associated Press's website. They have a complete copy of it there. Let me show you something. This is from part of the report. Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations, both at the time he spoke to Zonwitzer in 2017, as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today, as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with Zonwitzer from 2017 are painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. Now, I want you to notice something that's said here. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations from Zonwitzer from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. Ladies and gentlemen, do you realize the implication of what's being written there? It's long been known, or long suspected, I should say, that Joe Biden is in some state of cognitive decline. But according to the conclusion reached by Robert Hur and his attorneys working on this, Biden's cognitive issues go back as far as 2017. Now, just let that sink in for a minute and consider what we're about to read. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. Quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. In 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died, and his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he had mistakenly said he had, quote, a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact, Eikenberry was an ally whom Mr. Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you realize exactly what's being said here. The Justice Department had conversations with Biden, or at least heard tapes of Biden back in 2017. On those tapes, Biden was having trouble then remembering things. His conversations were haltingly slow, etc. The Justice Department lawyers who wrote this report are saying that Biden's memory was worse. He couldn't remember when he began his term as vice president and when it ended. And furthermore, he can't remember the date or the year when his son died. Now, it's long been suspected that Joe Biden has cognitive problems. As a matter of fact, I remember one of Obama's former cabinet officials, Julian Castro, bringing it up back in 2019 when Castro was running for the Democrat nomination that Joe Biden had problems. Nobody believed him at the time. Everybody sloughed it off and said, come on, you know how Joe is. He'll occasionally have the verbal gaffe. He'll have problems saying something, but Joe's fine. There's no problem. There's no issues. No, ladies and gentlemen. Keep in mind, everything I'm reading so far is not coming from Alex Jones or Steve Bannon or Breitbart or the Gateway Pundit or any right-wing media organization. This is coming from the opinions of lawyers at the Justice Department, a Justice Department that is overseen by Merrick Garland, who was appointed to the position by President Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden's Justice Department that's coming to these conclusions about his cognitive abilities. But there's one more thing in the report that everybody in official Washington has seized on, and is absolutely, the conversation is on fire about it right now. I take you to one other part of the report. Take a look at this. We have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Based on our direct interactions with and observations of him, he is someone for whom many jurors will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. Now, what I just read to you is one among many reasons why Special Counsel Robert Hur and his team of lawyers made the decision not to charge President Biden. Some of them were based on evidence, some of them were based on conclusions that they had reached, but this last one, that Biden would present a sympathetic figure to the jury, and the jury would look at him not as a man who committed an action with willful intent, but a man well into his 80s, perhaps well-intentioned, but definitely having memory problems. That last statement has set Washington ablaze with conversation. It more or less confirms what everybody suspected about Joe Biden for the longest time. He is in cognitive decline. The degree to which he is in cognitive decline is up for debate, but now it can't be hidden anymore. And keep in mind who's saying this. This isn't right-wing media. This isn't conservatives. This isn't Republicans on Capitol Hill. This isn't Donald Trump. These are lawyers from the Biden Justice Department who sat down with this man over 2 days, interviewed him directly, observed his actions, went back and listened to recordings of conversations that he had at least 7 or 8 years ago, and have come to the conclusion his memory's no good. He can't remember anything. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely frightening on so many different levels. Now, a little further into this story. Probably around late afternoon when the report broke, Biden held a press conference at an event he was attending. I'm not sure of the location. And he said, "Hey, I'm exonerated. They found that I did nothing wrong." And if that would have been enough, I don't think what would have happened next happened. But the blowback off of this report was so bad, coupled with the impending interview of Tucker Carlson to Vladimir Putin, apparently the political team at the White House decided it was time to bring Biden back out to take questions from the press. Let me tell you something. I'm going to show you some clips here in a second. You're going to realize just how bad an idea that was. But before we do that, let me show you some pictures that were also in the report. These are pictures of some of the boxes that those documents were kept in. These were at the garage at the house in Delaware for Joe Biden. Oh, this looks really, really secure, I tell you what. Now, as to the press conference itself, this you've got to hear. Now, let me show you something first. This is also from the report. Identified any classified information published in Promise Me, Dad, but Mr. Biden shared information, including some classified information from those notebooks, with his ghostwriter. FBI agents recovered the notebooks from the office. Marked classified documents about Afghanistan. These documents from the fall of 2009 have classification markings up to the top secret, sensitive compartmented information level. They were found in a box in Mr. Biden's Delaware garage. Now, keep in mind what's been said here. It is concluded that Biden shared classified information with his ghostwriter. So, take a listen to this.
Be president of the United States and finish the job I started.
Do you believe that, guys? President, why are you confusing the names of world leaders?
I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not. What the, well, no, they didn't.
Again, I don't know who's counseling Joe Biden right now or who inside his political operation thought this was a real good idea, but I'm telling you right now, he did not look good in this press conference. Some other clips that I think you ought to have a look at. Let me show you something right now. This is really interesting, and I can't believe that his people put him out here in this situation. But folks, I want you to watch this because this is really interesting. This is really bad. Like I said, I can't believe his people did this to him. Check this out.
I know there's some attention paid to some language in the report about my recollection of events. There's even reference that I don't remember when my son died. How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, wasn't any of their damn business. Let me tell you something. Some of you have commented, I wear since the day he died, every single day, the rosary he got from Our Lady of. Every Memorial Day, we hold a service remembering him, attended by friends and family and the people who loved him. I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone to remind me when he passed away or passed away.
Mr. President, the issue is not anyone reminding you of when he passed away. And you might get mad at the fact that the special counsel and his attorneys brought up the question of, do you know what date it was when your son passed away? But there is something very important in how you phrase that. You're not denying that you couldn't remember it. Now, I will admit, and I will try to be fair here, it's obvious when discussing his late son, Beau Biden, that Joe Biden does get very emotional about this, as you would expect any parent to be. As a matter of fact, he even paused in speaking about where he obtained the rosary from, the particular Catholic Church. Okay, I can give him that one. But lawyers at the Department of Justice are not trying to make anything other than, do you know when this took place? They simply asked you a question, sir, and you couldn't answer it. Like I said, this press conference was bad because for the first time in a long time, I've seen the press in Washington go after Joe Biden in a way I have never watched before. It was extraordinary. Now, what's the upshot of all this? I have said for the longest time that I thought that there was no way in the world Joe Biden would not be the nominee for the Democrat Party. I thought he would be taking on Donald Trump all the way to November. Notice I said thought as in past tense. Ladies and gentlemen, after what I've watched today and after what I've read, I have to revise that opinion. I not only think that there's a very strong possibility Joe Biden won't make it to the convention, I also think there's a strong possibility he won't be president by the time of the convention. What am I talking about? Folks, after this report dropped and after this press conference tonight, there is serious talk in Washington, D.C. swirling around about the invocation of Clause 4 of the 25th Amendment. Now, if you don't know what that looks like, let me show you something. By way of refreshing everybody's memory, the 25th Amendment deals with presidential disability and succession. I take you straight to Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, and it reads as follows. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress as may law provide transmit to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the Executive Department or of such other body of Congress may by law transmit within 4 days to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the written declaration, or if Congress is not in session, within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President. Otherwise, the President shall resume the powers and duties of his office. Okay, it's the first part of this that's actually being talked about. That either a majority of the cabinet officers or the body of Congress determine that the President's unable to fulfill duties, the Vice President shall become acting President. Now, I can just hear it right now for all you lefties out there that are watching this video. Oh, come on, Front Porch. Give it up. You just want Biden out of office. Oh, I want Biden out of office for any number of different reasons. But folks, this is now past being partisan. This is now past being Democrat, Republican, Independent, Conservative, Liberal. The bloom is off the rose. Lawyers, independent lawyers at the Justice Department, who are simply asked to investigate a question, have found out after examining the President of the United States under questioning that he cannot remember simple, basic things. He can't remember the years that he was vice president. He can't remember within accuracy or within a number of years when his son Beau died. And apparently his cognitive problems go back all the way to 2017. And the report concludes that when they interviewed him now in 2023, he was worse now than when he was in 2017. Do I think the 25th Amendment ought to be invoked? Yes, I do. I sadly come to that conclusion. Sadly, because I don't want to see the country go through this. But it's reached the point, this is a national security matter. This man cannot remember basic things. He's in cognitive decline. Not my opinion, the opinion of lawyers at his Justice Department. And for the sake of national security, he cannot be allowed to continue in the office of the presidency if he is in such a state. And it's been concluded he is in such a state. There's something wrong with the man. Now, if you want to have medical doctors examine him, give him cognitive tests, fine. But something's wrong here, enough that people who are not on their face partisan are coming to the conclusion this man's got cognitive issues. And I'm not the only person who thinks the 25th Amendment ought to be invoked. I'll give you one last thing and we'll wrap this up. Take a look at this. From Andrew McCarthy, formerly of the Justice Department, and who, by the way, is no bomb thrower. Listen to this. Well, my first impression was that this is supposed to be about whether there's enough evidence to indict as you read the report. I can't help but say, sure looks like there's enough here to invoke the 25th Amendment. And I know that's not what he's looking at, what his purpose is, but his fitness for office is a major issue here. Folks, the gatekeeper media and institutional Washington cannot keep this a secret anymore. Now it's out there for everybody and God to see. Joe Biden is in cognitive decline. For the good of the country, the cabinet or the Congress need to come together and start the wheels turning on the 25th Amendment. I don't want to see it happen. I really don't. But folks, it's no longer a partisan issue. It's no longer an ideological issue. This is an issue for the good of the whole country. He needs to be removed from the presidency by constitutional method. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please leave a comment below. I would love to know what you think about this. Number three, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new material is coming out. Number 4, please share the video around. And finally, give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I'll see you next time.